Dutch government to seize up to half the country's farmland under the guise of curbing nitrogen emissions. Global warming strikes again and shows itself to be nothing more than the pretext that it is to not curb global warming, but to grab more power and control. Because if you control the food supply, you control the people, baby. Anyway, before I get into this story, I would like to ask those of you out there that like and appreciate the raw, red pill nature of my content, please go check out my BitChute channel, bitchute.com/The Realist Philosopher. That's bitchute.com/The Realist Philosopher. That is where all of my content ends up, no matter what it might be it political or social commentary. Some sites I only post political, some sites I only post the social commentary stuff, but on my BitChute channel I post everything. And if you're not familiar with BitChute, it's basically very much like YouTube, except less censorship, supposedly, although I think there is still quite a bit of shadow banning going on there. There have been rumors that BitChute is actually owned by the UK government. I don't know. I've heard a bunch of stuff. I do think they are in the UK, though. So, yeah, there's probably a bit of shadow banning going on there. Anyway, go check me out on bitchute.com/The Realist Philosopher. Like, subscribe, leave some comments. I'd really appreciate your support. So, back to this story. So, the Dutch government is going to grab, wow, that is so, yeah, that is so much in line with a democratic government. Yeah. Just going to take your shit. Yeah. Because democracy almost always is going to lead to socialism. Yeah. Ever more control of the ways and means of production by a centralized authority, i.e. the government. We're going to take half the farmland. Not because we want to grab power, not because we want to control the food supply and make you eat bugs. Oh, no. And tank your ability to fucking produce testosterone, which we've more or less already done, but we want to tank it more. So we're going to grab half the farmland under the excuse that we're trying to curb global warming. Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, there's some cows. The farting cows that AOC talked about. We got too many cows. Too much meat. Cows fart too much. Creates methane. Greenhouse gases. The Earth's getting too hot. Yeah, when I was a kid, it was global cooling. Now they've moved to this amorphous term of climate change. Yeah. With it comes a whole bunch of erroneous assumptions. Yeah. What it really means is the world is going to end in 10 or 12 years. The polar bears are dying because the ice caps are melting. Meanwhile, research has proven that there's more polar bears than ever and the ice caps are growing. But hey. Since when the leftists let facts get in the way of their bullshit? Anyway, the story begins by saying farmers in the Netherlands are at risk of having their land seized under the guise of curbing supposedly harmful emissions. Yeah. Meanwhile, these politicians fly around in private jets and shit. And the Dutch government has made it its goal to seize up to half of the country's farmland. Yeah. As these bureaucrats drive around saying, expropriate, expropriate, in their big, giant, gas-guzzling SUVs. Oh boy, yeah, the Dutch, the Dutchland, their Dutch government is becoming ever more like the Venezuelan government. Lovely. Remember that video of Chavez walking around, expropriate, expropriate. Yeah. How'd that work out? Not so good. They ate all the farm animals. Yeah, the main source of protein in Venezuela now is rats. And people using crypto coin to smuggle in meat via drones at the borders by the black market. Yeah. Oh boy, that's great. So the Dutch government its goal is to seize up to half of the country's farmland. Lovely. The government of the Netherlands has just been given the green light by the European Union. Yeah. Lovely. Main executive body to push forward with a farm buyout scheme. Farm buyout scheme with paper money that is very soon going to be worthless, that you're going to have to turn in for crypto tokens of dubious value. Yeah, but they can just type that shit in and create money literally out of thin air. No printing required and no control of the money supply on your behalf. They will control the money. They will control the food supply. They will control you. although they do already to a certain extent. Yeah, they got a buyout. Ooh, yeah. So that will see the country spend 1.5 billion euros. Jesus. In taxpayer money, of course, to drastically cut emissions of how? Nitrogen pollution. They're talking about fertilizer. You do understand that fertilizer is very expensive, and that the Dutch farmers have already done the best they can to cut their use of fertilizer to the bare minimum. They have found new and innovative and creative ways to make their fertilizing of their fields as efficient as humanly possible. They can't cut it anymore. So how are you going to cut emissions when the people who are specialized in this field, and agriculture is a science, don't kid yourself, and these farmers are scientists when it comes to planting crops and producing as much food as possible on a given parcel of land. They are the experts, and it saves them money. It behooves them. It's in their best interest to cut fertilizer use as much as humanly fucking possible to save money. They have cut the use of fucking fertilizers as much as humanly fucking possible. They have made what fertilizer they do use go as far as possible with the current technology that we have. So how's it going to get cut further? Oh, we'll produce less food. We'll grow less food. So, of course, the cost of food will skyrocket. Out of control. Out of control. Lovely. That's great. Brilliant plan. Because you can't cut the nitrogen use any other way. Because these farmers, they are not the government. They're doing what's in their best interest. Then it's in their best interest to cut costs. Governments don't give a fuck about cutting costs. They just print money ad infinitum. Oh, I love how people always think government is the answer. No, government is the problem. Yeah, but the government is somehow, after taking control of this land, going to cut nitrogen production. The only way they could do that is to grow less food. Yeah, geez, got the government taking over the ways and means of food production. Yeah, that's going to end up real well, because every country that has taken over private industry and put that into the hands of government has been so productive. That worked so well for the Soviet Union. Oh, this is great. Yeah, they're going to drastically cut nitrogen pollution. Okay. Yeah, by outright seizing livestock farms. They're going to seize livestock farms too. And not just seizing farmland and cutting nitrogen pollution by cutting the use of fertilizers, which you can only do by cutting food production, but they're also going to seize livestock farms, which means they're also going to produce less meat. Of course. They got to go after the meat supply as well. Because meat eating allows people to produce more testosterone, and testosterone is the logic hormone, baby. Well, we can't have a population that can critically think and has logic and reason. No. Makes it more difficult to control them and turn them into the useful idiot sheeple that we want. Oh, man. Yeah, the ruling coalition of the Netherlands wants to cut the country's emissions of pollution such as nitrogen oxide and ammonia by 50% by 2030. The only way to do that is to cut your livestock by 50% and your food production by 50%. How are you going to eat? Well, we'll import everything from other countries. So those other countries will increase their production of food. So you're not really producing less nitrogen or greenhouse gases globally. You're just exporting it to another country. Well, we'll buy our meat and our greens and our vegetables and fruit from other countries, and they'll increase their food production. So you're not reducing global emissions at all. You're just making it more expensive for your citizens to get food. This is nothing more than a desperate attempt at the bare minimum, the virtue signal, but it's really about grabbing more power and more control, because it's not having any effect on global greenhouse gas emissions. Oh my God, 70% of Holland is owned by small cow farmers. 70%. Is that bad? I guess if you're like a Marxist, that's bad, right? I guess. 70% owned by cow farmers. Too few people own too much land. Yeah, we need to make everything equal. We need to parcel that land out, or at the very least put it into the hands of the government so more people benefit. Aren't you benefiting now by getting cheap dairy, cheap milk, cheap meat, cheap vegetables, because it's all grown locally? Nah. No. Dutch government to cease all activity on farmland. It's just great. Yeah. But there isn't some attack on the food supply. Yeah. Meanwhile, in America, we've had like over 100 food production plants in like just the past couple of years burned down. Yeah. That's just a coincidence. That's not purposeful in any way. The Dutch government's plan is to reduce nitrogen. Yeah, a bunch of bullshit. Yeah, designated, whatever. It's all lies. Yeah. These designated lands mostly affect livestock farms, but not all. Not all. Yeah, they want you to eat more greens and leafy vegetables and fruits, but they won't grow them in the Netherlands. European Commissioner for Competition. You have a commissioner for competition? Yeah. What's her job? To reduce competition? You're not just reducing competition, you're getting rid of the entire fucking market in your country. Oh, I thought competition was a good thing. Well, not if you're a commie. If you're a commie, the commissar or commissioner for competition, their job is all about getting rid of competition, it seems. Margriet Vestager said in a statement that the programs approved in the Netherlands would clear the way for the voluntary closure, but it's not voluntary, it's a buyout. It's not voluntary at all. You're seizing their land, and then you're paying them for that land. Probably not even paying them fair market value. Of course, you get to determine what the fair market value is, right? Right. With paper money that you printed out of thin air, and you're going to print some more. So even as you're giving them that money, it's becoming ever more devalued the more farmland you buy. It's lovely. Meanwhile, you're going to raise the cost of all food in the Netherlands. And that money is going to quickly disappear as a gallon of milk ends up costing like 10 euros. 20 euros. Dozen eggs will cost like $50. Great. Yeah, you can say goodbye to that 1.5 billion bucks real quick. Oh, the EU has designated up to 3,000 farms nationwide that the Dutch government can voluntarily buy out. No, it's not a voluntary buyout. Buyouts are not voluntary. You're giving them a choice? No. So why are you calling it voluntary? It's not a choice. They don't have a choice. Government doesn't give you a choice. They call it voluntary, but it's not voluntary. To reach the government's goal of shrinking the country's emissions. I love this. They say seize and then later call it voluntary. Dutch government to seize and cease all activity on farmland. Well, how the fuck is that voluntary? Oh, that's great. To reach the government's goal of shrinking the country's emissions by 50% in the next 7 years, up to half of these farms need to be seized. How is that voluntary? I'm going to take your shit. Can I say no? No. Well, how's that voluntary then? This is why we don't want you to have testosterone and be able to think logically, critically, and reasonably. We want sheeple idiots who don't see these contradictions. Once the Dutch government purchases, what do you mean purchases? You're seizing. You're giving them some fake money to make them feel better. That'll almost immediately lose any real value it has. Because you're printing up ever more of it. That's great. Oh, lovely. Purchases and takes away these designated farms. How is take away voluntary? Its goal is to halt all work on these farms to prevent them from emitting too much nitrogen. But where's the food? Where's the meat and the vegetables going to come from then to feed the people? Well, we'll just outsource that to Cambodia. Again, tell me how this is reducing greenhouse gas emissions globally when you're just outsourcing the food production to another country. I don't get it. That makes no sense at all. All you're really doing is raising the costs. So you're seizing the ways and means of production as well as impoverishing your people. That gives you ever more control over them because they're that much poorer. And the poorer they get, the more dependent they are on the government. Well, I think I see what their goal is. You see, I can think logically, critically, and reasonably because I eat my meat, yo! Something that the Netherlands and other European countries don't want their citizens doing, apparently. Yeah, prevent them from emitting too much nitrogen. Well, how much is too much? Can somebody tell me? Do you know? No, you don't know. The schemes. Yeah, schemes. That's the perfect word. They're scheming. It's a scheme. Will improve the environmental conditions in those areas. No, they won't. No, they won't. What are you talking about? You're the ones talking about how greenhouse gases and climate change is a global phenomenon. Well, how is anything going to change when you're just going to essentially outsource your food production to Vietnam and other countries? I don't get it. Those other countries are just going to increase their food production to meet the demand. So you're not changing anything. In fact, those other countries have less ecologically friendly ways of growing food. So you're actually going to increase the amount of greenhouse gas emissions because these other countries, they are less eco-friendly, less eco-minded. They have less laws and regulations in regards to protecting the environment. So you're actually going to increase the amount of pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. Because you're going to offshore all this to third world countries like China and India who don't give a fuck about the environment. All they care about is growing their fucking economy however they have to. Morons! Yeah, this scheme will improve the environmental conditions. No, they won't. No, it won't. And will promote a more sustainable and environmentally friendly production. But what do you mean? More sustainable? You're cutting the production in half. By the way, why is cutting the production in half more sustainable? Oh, because it's more environmentally friendly. Is it? Has that been proven? I mean, if you subscribe to the end of world climate change fallacy, then yeah, belief, whatever, I guess. If you say the world's going to end in 10 years if you don't take these measures, and if you take these measures, the world isn't going to end, then I guess, yeah, by that logic, it's more sustainable. Yeah, in the livestock sector, without unduly distorting competition. What do you mean? You're getting rid of half the farms. What do you mean without unduly distorting competition? You're getting rid of half the competition. But you're getting rid of half the competition. And they're going to drive costs up and lead to shortages? Wow. They picked the right person to be their competition czar, a moron that doesn't understand economics or how competition works. Dutch pro-farmer organization LTO said in a statement that if the buyouts will happen, then they must exclusively be voluntary, but they're not. It must be designed. Jesus Christ, I mean, by the way, they're going to seize it, so it's not voluntary. But even if it is voluntary, I mean, if you offer them enough money, a lot of these farmers will sell. Not realizing that they're just going to print this money out of thin air, and that by the time they actually get it and put it under their mattress, it's going to have lost half its value. Oh, man. They must, and of course, in a very short period of time, they're going to need to trade that money in for some cryptocurrency that's centrally controlled by the EU, by their very own country, whatever. It's not going to be controlled by them. Yeah, digital currency. And they're probably not going to get a one-to-one exchange. Great. So they're getting robbed right out of the gate. It has to be voluntary. It must be designed in such a way that they truly offer farmers who voluntarily give up their land the opportunity to remain comfortable for the rest of their lives. How comfortable are they going to be when they have to spend $100 on 12 eggs from the money provided to them by the sale? Yeah. Comfortable for the rest of their lives. They're giving up their entire industry. They're giving up their profession. If they're young, they might have another 40 years until they retire. You really think they're going to be able to survive on this one-time payout? Then in 40 years it'll be worthless? There won't even be paper money in 40 years. You're making a lot of assumptions there. Yeah. LTO also called for compromise, of course. Yeah, they're calling for compromise. Yeah. because they're more moderate, they're more reasonable, they're more rational because they work for a living, so they understand more about how the world works. So they, like any good, more conservative person, is calling for compromise, which is exactly what the left wants. The left makes some unreasonable, extreme demands, and what they really want is like somewhere in the middle, and then, of course, the people on the right call for compromise, and then you end up doing exactly what the left actually wanted. It's a typical negotiating tactic. You ask for more than you want, compromising, you get exactly what you wanted. Yeah. So whatever this compromise will be, it'll be exactly what the left wanted. Compromise transition schemes that allow farmers to continue operating in such a way that they will voluntarily reduce nitrogen emissions. They already voluntarily reduce them because reducing nitrogen emissions reduces the amount of waste. But by the way, nitrogen emissions in regards to livestock would be feed. Feed and farts. You feed them, they fart. Okay, so we feed them already as little as we possibly can. We have done as much as we possibly can to create these nutrient-rich foods that produce as little nitrogen as possible, and they produce as little nitrogen as possible because we give these animals as few calories as humanly possible. What are we going to do? Reduce the calories further until we got emaciated cows with no meat on them? Yeah. So the cows will be skin and bone. You can only reduce nitrogen emissions in terms of farts, in terms of gas from people and animals to such an extent. You can only reduce that so much. Eventually, you got to start reducing the calories. You reduce them enough, you've got cows that are literally only good for glue. Can you make glue from cow bones? This is just horse bones. I guess you could use cow bones too. I mean, that's all these cows are going to be good for. Pretty soon. Yeah, but we're going to reduce the food supply to these animals even more. Yeah. Like you haven't done that already. Because, again, farmers are going to do everything they can to cut costs because it increases their profits. And they have a profit incentive to do so. The government has no such incentive. So you would want to keep that in the hands of the private sector. Once you put it into the government's hands, it becomes extremely inefficient. Of course, the government just wants to cease food production in the Netherlands. Anyway, so, moot point, I guess. This is the only way farmers can make informed and well-considered decisions about their futures. Yeah. By the looks of this article, I don't think they are informed. Last year, Dutch agricultural exports were worth 122.3 billion euros. That's another problem. They're growing more food than they need. So they're exporting a lot of it out of the country. And those exports, they fetch a pretty profit, as most exported goods do. So that's a large percentage of the country's GDP. You're going to cut that in half. Where are you going to cut that to not? You're going to cut that entirely. That 50% that you're cutting, there goes 12 to 13% of the country's GDP right there. It's going to disappear entirely. These farmers make more money off of those exports than they do selling locally. You go into the imported food aisle in the supermarket, you see these foods from the Netherlands and China and all that. They cost more than stuff made locally. Yeah, of course. There's import fees, and you got to ship the shit over, and of course you're paying a premium to get something that's from another country, and it's exotic. So they make a lot of money off this shit. So you're going to cut if you cut out 50% of the farms in the Netherlands, that will completely remove their food exportability. And it's also going to cut into their local food supply as well. So you're going to cut 122 billion euros from their economy. Lovely. I mean, these exports don't just benefit the farmers. I mean, there's all sorts of ancillary industries from, like, for example, shipping and such that benefit from all these exports. So you're going to cut thousands of jobs. You're going to cost thousands of people their salaries. And you're going to cut 122 billion euros from the Netherlands economy. That's brilliant. And while at the same time raising the cost of food locally and raising the cost of food overall because you're having to ship ever more into the country from outside the country because you've hamstrung your ability to grow food locally. Brilliant. That's brilliant. Shutting down up to half of all farm activity in the Netherlands would not only do nothing to improve the environment, but it would also devastate the nation's economy, correct? And food supply, correct? As I just said. Not to mention the livelihoods of the thousands of Dutch people who make a living in agriculture. Yeah, correct. Not just the farmers, it's the people they employ. It's the people that work in trucking and shipping, people that work on those vessels that carry all of those containers to other countries, other continents via the sea. I mean, you would devastate a shit ton of jobs and industries. Learn more about the dangerous policies being proposed to combat so-called climate change at greentyranny.news and climatealarmism.news. I encourage you to do this. Yes, absolutely. So there you go. There you go. That is one way that they control the people. They want to take control of the food supply. They do it by fear porn to get you to give up your farms, to be okay with centralizing the control of farmland in the hands of governments so that they can protect you from evil greenhouse gases. They're going to melt the ice caps and kill off all the polar bears and cause all the coastal cities to flood, and it's going to be a catastrophe. End of the world. Yeah. Meanwhile, the main goal is to just control ever more of the economy. And one way to do that is to remove competition in all areas. And a great way to do that is to make everybody poor. If you're spending so much money on your energy, on your food and transportation and living expenses and rent, you've got no extra money to open any businesses, so you're not able to compete with Walmart. You're not able to compete with Amazon. You're not able to compete with Walgreens. You're not able to compete with that big Home Depot down the street. There'll just be a handful of big, giant corporations that are wedded with government, and together, those corporations and the government control your life because you got no options. You got no choices. And they get you by the balls, baby. Because you're a poor, broke mofo. Anyhow, there you go. There you go. So let me know what you think of this story in the comments section on my BitChute channel. bitchute.com/The Realist Philosopher. That's bitchute.com/The Realist Philosopher. Go there, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the governments of the world and their big, giant power grabs. You think it's just coincidence that the cost of energy has skyrocketed, that a couple years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, gas cost $1 a gallon, now it costs $5 a gallon? You think that's just a coincidence that that's happening at the same time that the governments of the world are producing all this fear porn and making your life so much more expensive and shutting down 75% of the small businesses in America? That happened, for example, say during COVID. They shut down 75% of the small businesses in America, put you at home, made you more dependent on the government, skyrocketed the cost of energy, and now they're trying to skyrocket the cost of food very successfully. Meanwhile, you got all these fucking food production plants burning down all over the fucking world. You got governments trying to seize farms and shut farms down and outsource food production to other countries, essentially going to skyrocket the cost of food. Do you think that's all just a coincidence? That's all happening at the same fucking time? You think it's a coincidence that everybody's going broke just trying to fucking put fuel in their gas tank and food in their cupboards? You think that's all coincidence, or you think that's all planned? Let me know in the comment section. bitchute.com/The Realist Philosopher. Go check it out for more yummy red pills.